The first action step that we need to do is take inventory. Take inventory when your life is headed towards a shipwreck. You need to stop and evaluate. Stop and take some inventory of where you are. That's what the sailors were doing. They're taking inventory and evaluating. Okay, where are we? It's the middle of the night. We've been out in this storm for 14 days. Where are we? We need to evaluate our spiritual life. Find out, okay, where am I at? And be honest with ourselves. Because it's important that, when we're looking at our spiritual life, or we're looking at, our relationships and work life, that we're honest with where we're at. Because not many people enjoy self-evaluation, right? But it's necessary to get your bearings, to know where you are, and so you can kind of, course correct. Maybe, as I said, maybe your marriage is going through it right now, and you're just having feel like you're just butting heads with your spouse, and you need to sit down and evaluate where you are. Maybe grab a notepad or an iPad or whatever, and kind of write down and start writing down, like, hey, this is the good things in my marriage right now. These are the things that could probably be a little bit better. These are the things I'm just not happy with. And kind of, write them down and kind of identify some areas, here's the thing, that you need to work on. Do not create a list for your spouse. All right, honey, I made a list for you. This is what you need to work on, right? No. You need to make a list for yourself and evaluate yourself. How am I treating my spouse? How am I loving my spouse? How am I, and kind of and be honest with yourself. Like, hey, I need to do better here, do better here. And it will help you kind of get a bearing and kind of get your surroundings to know, where am I when it comes to my marriage? Or maybe, as I said, you're having a hard time at work. And you're like, man, this work just isn't going well. I'm not doing well. Why am I always getting passed over for that promotion? Why am I not getting the raise that I feel like I deserve? Again, you need to take some inventory, take some soundings, find where you are and what you need to work on. Hey, these are the things that, maybe I kind of show up to work late, consistently. I maybe, need to be told over and over the same thing. Maybe I need to learn something. Like, I don't know what it is about your job that you feel like, hey, I'm always getting passed over for promotions or raises and things just aren't going. Sit down and take inventory and evaluate, where am I? Or as a parent, man, this summer season, it's here. Parents, whether we like it or not, your kids are home, and maybe you're like, I have no idea what you kind of need to evaluate. Sit down and talk to your kids. Have some conversations. Maybe feels like you've been always butting heads with your kids and always argument, always, having to discipline them. Maybe you need to sit down and kind of talk and find out, like, hey, what's going on? Like, how are you feeling? Where are you at? Like, it just seems like you're always argumentative, in a bad mood, whatever it is, and kind of take inventory and evaluate where your kids are at, so hey, I need to adjust my parenting just a little bit here so I can, parent them. This is where they are, and this is what they need from me. And so we as people, the people of God, we need to evaluate, where am I? Where am I in my marriage and my relationships and my parenting and my spiritual life? Like, where am I? In Acts, jumping down to verse 29, it says they took the soundings, right? They took the soundings. They found that they were 120 feet deep, and then only 90 feet deep. And so they knew they're getting shallower, heading towards land. And so it says, fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. So they couldn't see land. They just knew, hey, it's getting shallower. We're probably headed towards land. So they threw 4 anchors off the stern, which is the back of the boat. They threw it off and hopes to kind of stop and halt the ship, because they didn't want to get crashed up on the rocks. They didn't know what the landscape was of where they were headed. See, when you're in the middle of a storm and you're headed towards shipwreck, sometimes you can't see, right? Sometimes it's dark and you're not sure where you are. But when you take inventory and you kind of evaluate your life honestly, you'll get a sense of, where really, truly am I? And then you can take some action steps. For those sailors, the action step was, it's getting shallower, headed towards land. We need to throw the anchors off the back. So they threw the anchors off the back to stop the boat. What is your action step? What is it that you might need to do based upon your personal evaluation of your spiritual life, of your life as it comes to your relationships and your kids?